Can Prime Minister Modi and President Trump restore India-US ties before they spiral out of control? Modi sent External Affairs Minister Jaishankar to Moscow to meet President Putin, after which the Foreign Minister said this on US tariffs.
Quite honestly, we are very perplexed at the logic of the argument that...
He elaborated, "We are not the biggest purchasers of Russian oil, that is China. We are not the biggest purchasers of LNG, that is the European Union," saying that the US tariffs have left India perplexed. Even inside America, voices against Trump's confusing trade standoff with India are raising alarm. Trump tariffs on India have been questioned by Republican leader Nikki Haley, who says losing India as a strategic ally would be a blunder for America against China. The Modi government has refused to give in to Trump tariff pressure over energy imports from Russia, while Trump's dead economy jibe and the Pakistan card have rubbed Indians the wrong way. Nikki Haley now warns, quote, "To achieve the Trump administration's foreign policy goals, outcompeting China and achieving peace through strength, few objectives are more critical than getting US-India relations back on track. Scuttling 25 years of momentum will the only country that can serve as a counterweight to Chinese dominance in Asia would be a strategic disaster," unquote. Earlier, top US economist Jeffrey Sachs termed the Trump administration's anti-India agenda the stupidest move in US history. He elaborated, quote, "What it did overnight was unify the BRICS countries as never before." He added, "Going after India, a country the US has been cultivating, destroyed trust. Even if the tariff is removed, the Indians learned a lesson. You cannot trust the United States," unquote. Of course, China and the CCP would like nothing more than to capitalize on this India-US rift. Beijing does not want India, its only real rival in Asia, to be a strong US ally and a leading member of the Quad, which was projected as a counter to Chinese expansionist threats in the Indo-Pacific. So the big question is, what is Modi's China strategy amid trade tensions with America? Is Modi using this opportunity as an off-ramp to ease India-China tensions? Surprisingly, China says it stands with India against America. Xu Feihong, the Chinese ambassador to India, declared, quote, "US has imposed tariffs of up to 50% on India and even threatened for more. China firmly opposes it. Silence only emboldens the bully," unquote. And that's cute, coming from a country which is infamous for dead-trap diplomacy. Meanwhile, Xi Jinping made his second ever visit to Tibet to mark the 60th anniversary of its establishment as an autonomous region of China. Meanwhile, China has also accelerated plans for a new railway through the disputed Aksai-Chin region, connecting Xinjiang with Tibet. This will not only accelerate troop movement, but also aim to boost Tibet's connectivity to the Chinese mainland. And that is the ground reality of India-China tensions. Will it raise an alarm in New Delhi, just like the CPEC corridor through Pakistan-occupied Kashmir? For the first time in 3 years, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited New Delhi and held a series of meetings with Indian leadership, including calling on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Indian Prime Minister Modi highlighted the steadily improving ties between the two Asian giants ever since the border de-escalation reached last year. Modi also accepted Chinese President Xi Jinping's invitation to attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or the SCO summit later this month in China. The Chinese administration has also lifted export bans on rare earth minerals as well as fertilizers to India, while New Delhi lifted its own restrictions on border trade with China in a sign that civilizational neighbors may be putting the recent border tensions behind them. However, rest assured, it's a cautious reset at best, and it will take time to rebuild trust after the 2020 Galwan Valley clashes, which led to loss of lives on both sides. Prime Minister Modi issued a statement, quote, "Glad to meet Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Since my meeting with President Xi in Kazan last year, India-China relations have made steady progress, guided by respect for each other's interests and sensitivities," unquote. Now, critics remind of 1962, when after years of diplomacy, China invaded Indian territories in Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh. Can India and China find a lasting solution to the border dispute and settle it once and for all? Touching upon the long-standing border dispute between the two nations, Prime Minister Modi urged for maintaining peace and tranquility at the border while reiterating India's commitment to a fair, reasonable, and mutually acceptable resolution to the boundary question. Donald Trump can certainly claim credit for bringing India and China together. Trump's 50% tariffs seem to have had more impact on New Delhi than China supplying fighter jets, missiles, and submarines to Pakistan to be used against India in the recent conflict. In fact, Beijing had also banned rare earths and fertilizers for India in a direct attack on Indian economy even before Trump tariffs came into force. Just recently, even the Indian military claimed how Pakistan was just the front for testing Chinese weapons against India. However, all that seems to have been quickly eclipsed by uproar over Trump's reciprocal tariffs. Yes, US tariffs are unfair and a solution must be found. The biggest red line is United States playing the Pakistan card, but then hasn't China too been playing the same card for decades now? Just a few days ago, China supplied its third Hangar-class submarine to Karachi. So who's a bigger threat to India's territorial sovereignty? Is it China or is it the United States? Who's supplying weapons to Pakistan to wage war against India? Is it the United States or is it China? Who's a better trade partner for India? USA or China? Which country contributes more to India's economic growth? I'm sure India's External Affairs Ministry under Dr. Jaishankar has taken all these questions into consideration. India's foreign policy is surely being driven by such strategic calculations with a long-term vision. And if so, does the recent thaw indicate that New Delhi suddenly feels that the United States poses a greater geopolitical risk to India than an expansionist China, which includes Arunachal Pradesh and Ladakh in its own territorial maps? I feel a permanent solution to the India-China border dispute must be found for lasting peace. And now, reports emerge that progress in fact has been made on this front. Two new India-China working groups have been formed for the first time to find a mutually agreeable boundary solution. This is a huge development and the biggest breakthrough ahead of Prime Minister Modi's China visit. Are we finally edging closer to a permanent border agreement with India's biggest and strongest neighbor? Earlier, the Chinese foreign minister met with India's national security advisor Ajit Doval to hold the 24th round of special representatives talks on the India-China boundary question. On August 18th, the Chinese FM also held talks with his counterpart, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. Sources claim that Beijing promised to solve New Delhi's three major concerns: fertilizers, rare earth minerals, and tunnel boring machines. We'll have to wait and see how long the CCP keeps its word. India has been in talks with China for a long time now to ensure uninterrupted supply of rare earth minerals. These are crucial for various industries including electric vehicles, wind turbines, and defense manufacturing. Only a few months back, China had tightened the supply of rare earth magnets to India, critical components used in the EV industry and other high-tech products, in a direct attack on India's auto industry. India had imported 460 tons of rare earth magnets from China in just the last fiscal year, as Beijing controls 90% of global processing capacity for such magnets. Export restrictions on rare earth elements were placed by China on April 2nd, claiming to be response to Trump's decision to hike tariffs against Chinese products to 54%. During Wang Yi's India visit, officials discussed several key issues, with India bringing up the issue of cross-border terror and state-sponsored terror as well, linked to Pakistan. New Delhi further recalled that one of the original objectives of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, of the SCO, was counter the evil of such terror. MEA later said in a statement, Minister Wang Yi concurred that countering terror should be given the highest priority. New Delhi also brought up the issue of China's mega dam on the Brahmaputra River close to the Indian border. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar stressed that the world's largest dam here would have implications for lower riparian states, India and Bangladesh, and highlighted the need for utmost transparency in this regard was strongly underlined. Now remember earlier this year, Xi Jinping-led administration had given the nod for the construction of the world's largest hydropower project, costing $137 billion. The project will allow Beijing to control the timing and volume of water flowing downstream, which could have devastating effects during periods of low flow or drought and even untimely floods, which could displace communities, destroy crops, and damage infrastructure. Meanwhile, I'm not sure if the issue of the proposed Chinese airbase in Bangladesh was discussed close to the Siliguri corridor. As the Chinese foreign minister wrapped up his India visit, the Chinese state-run Xinhua reported that Wang Yi noted a positive trend towards returning to cooperation. Wang Yi stressed, "It is imperative for the two sides to have correct strategic perceptions, view each other as partners and opportunities rather than rivals or threats, and invest in valuable resources in development and revitalization." Without directly naming the United States, Wang Yi stated that the world is changing and the situation is evolving rapidly, with unilateral bullying practices becoming rampant. It seems Donald Trump is truly responsible for the ceasefire, not as much between India and Pakistan as he had been claiming, but certainly the ceasefire in the diplomatic hostilities between India and China. If you ask me, India would rather have peaceful relations with its strong neighbor rather than continued border tensions. So maybe we should all thank President Trump after all. For India, it could be wise to wait out the tariff storm and then improve ties once more with the next US administration. The world's two largest democracies have more to gain by working together for a rules-based international order. As far as China is concerned, Modi's strategy seems to be to use US tensions as an off-ramp to once again improve trade ties and boost the Indian economy even further. Rest assured, India's foreign policy under Prime Minister Modi and Jaishankar would never compromise India's national interest. But have your say. Which country can India trust as a long-term strategic ally? Is it the United States or is it China? Leave a comment with your opinion, hit the like button and subscribe to Inconnect News.